Happy Tuesday, dirty girls. It is that time. Time for Training Tuesday. Welcome to our Tuesday night training. We are here tonight to talk about limiting beliefs. Yeah, I know. That's not what I put in the headline. I think what I put in the headline was it's time to get what you want and it's time to get out of your own way. And I meant that. But how we get out of our own way is by conquering our limiting beliefs. So that is the topic we are tackling tonight. So let's talk for a second about the limiting beliefs and what are they? Hey, Jackie, it's good to see you tonight. Thank you for joining. Limiting beliefs, things we believe about ourselves that limit us, which seems fairly self-evident when I say it that way. However, limiting beliefs are often so ingrained in us that we just assume they're true and that they're real. Sometimes they come from outside influences, sometimes they're messages that we somehow internalized when we were younger. Whether we understood them properly or not, we internalized them, we interpreted it to mean something, and then we move forward with the world holding on to this. So I want you to think about what some limiting beliefs might be that you are holding on to. Things that I used to believe about myself were things like, I have no patience. I am not a patient person. I'm bad at math. I don't have good ideas. I actually thought that. I really did for a long time think I don't have good ideas. And I had the idea that good ideas were like these sparks of brilliance that would just come over you and you would, like in the cartoons, jump up, I have an idea. And it would be like this life-changing, earth-shattering thing. And I thought, I never have anything like that. So I genuinely believed for a long time that I did not have any good ideas, and I certainly did not have any original ideas. Hey, Terry, good to see you. We're talking about limiting beliefs. I had a limiting belief that I was not a good singer. And tied to that limiting belief was one that, well, unless you are, I'm going to show my age here, but unless you are a Madonna, a Patsy Cline, a Roberta Flack superstar kind of singer, Carly Simon, you can't make money at it anyway. And I don't have that kind of talent, so what's the point? That was another limiting belief. Hey, Diana, thank you for joining us tonight. I had a limiting belief for a long time, well into my adulthood, that I'll never make that much money. I was looking at a boss that I had, and I saw how much money he made. And literally, the first place I went to was, I'll never make that much money because I don't deserve to make that much money. And tied to that deserve judgment was, I don't know what he knows. Or maybe I know what he knows, but I don't have like the skill or the presence to really pass it off and hold my own in an executive situation. So I'll never make that money. And why should I deserve it anyway? Because there's other people out there smarter than me, and they'll make that money first. I had a limiting belief, again, well into my adulthood, of I'm not athletic. I'm not a runner. I can't run. So why even start? Because I'll just look ridiculous. And it will probably hurt. And other people will judge me and want to know why I'm even bothering. Why am I even bothering, right? Jackie, you used to believe you were bad at math, and now you're building ROI calculators. Exactly. We have these limiting beliefs, and we all have them. And sometimes it's a message our parents gave us when we were little. Sometimes it's a message from the community. Sometimes it is, like I said, there's a situation that happens maybe when you're young, and you've interpreted it, whether it was the intent of the message or the situation or not, you interpreted it to give you a limiting belief. Sometimes it's just that inner gremlin voice, right? The gremlin voice in the back of our head that we all struggle with that says, you're not good enough, and we attach it to the things we really want. Because that gremlin is protecting us from getting hurt, so that we don't get hurt from maybe failing at or not being as good at the thing we really want, we then attach the story to it of the limiting belief, I can't do that anyway. It's not for me. All right. So thank you everybody who's joining tonight. Love everybody who's saying hello. If you haven't yet, please do. My name is Natalie Hahn. I am your coach tonight. We are here at Training Tuesday in our group, Accelerating Leadership for Professional Women, where every week we are here to talk about how we build leadership skills, confidence, how we move through our careers and really move through our lives, how we become the CEO of our life, and working on different aspects of that pesky imposter syndrome that holds us back. So thank you. If you are watching it live, as you have been doing, say hello in the chat. Please do ask questions, answer questions, participate. That makes it way more fun. If you're watching this in a replay, do the same, because we check the comments in the replay. It shows up in our group. It's a private group. It's all women here who have a lot of the same goals of doing the best we can and stepping up as big and as loud and as impactful and powerful as we can in our chosen areas. All right, so limiting beliefs. What do we do? Right? To get out of our own way. And that's the thing with limiting beliefs. Because they're in our head, they are literally us getting in our own way. That is literally what a limiting belief is, because it is our own story that we're telling ourselves that is stopping us from doing the thing, right? Because when we have a limiting belief, what are some of the behaviors that we exhibit when we have this? We avoid. I'm bad at math, therefore I avoided all the math classes in college, except for the one that I had to take twice because I failed it the first time, which was just feeding my story that I was bad at math. The story was never the professor wasn't good at teaching it. The story was never this just isn't at my pace or I'm at the wrong level. The story was I'm bad at this. So we avoid. We will also sometimes overthink it, especially if it's something we want, right? We then overthink just how bad we are or just how hard this is. And that's why we can't do the thing, have the thing, be the thing. We cast negative judgment on it. Worse, we cast a negative judgment on ourselves. Like the whole being a singer thing, which was my dream as a young teenager, which I was given feedback. Not that I couldn't sing, I just couldn't sing well enough. And I was definitely given the story of you'd never make money at it anyway. So don't bother, you'll just starve. Starving artist story. And I think any of you who have ever studied the arts have probably heard that starving artist story. Don't pursue the arts because you have to feed yourself. How are you going to do that? Which makes you then cast negative judgment, not just on the field. Well, nobody can make it unless they're uber talented or uber connected anyway, but also on yourself. I wasn't good enough to make this real. Which means we hold ourselves back. We stop ourselves from pursuing the things we want, pursuing the things we love, because we just assume, we believe, we lean into that belief. It's not possible for me. But do you know what else we do? We hold other people back because we often accept so much of our limiting beliefs as truth. It's just the truth. It's just the truth that unless you are an uber talented superstar singer, or unless you are so well connected, you can't be successful. So we then share that limiting belief with everybody we know. Maybe we pass it on down to our own children, that we hold other people back. We start layering our judgment on top of other people. And now we're limiting not just ourselves, we're limiting others. We end up living then in this very small, safe, protected environment. We live small when we let the limiting beliefs make the choices for us. So here's the challenge. And Jackie, thank you, first of all, for sharing what one of your limiting beliefs was. And I'm glad to see you're putting that behind you. I would love to hear what your other limiting beliefs are. And sometimes it is hard to kind of separate out what's real versus what's a limiting belief. So I want to invite you to challenge everything. Challenge everything as a limiting belief. Because when I look back at that list of limiting beliefs that I have, I don't have patience. You know what? I still say that sometimes because there are situations where I don't have patience. But I also know as an adult, I have cultivated patience for certain things. I think sometimes having kids helps you with that, by the way. But I have cultivated patience. I'm bad at math. I still don't think I'm great at math, but part of that's my education. I did not have advanced math education because I avoided it. But am I actually bad at math? Can I add, subtract, divide, do fractions? I actually can. I'm actually pretty good at it. I actually enjoy the logic of math. Go figure. I don't have good ideas. I don't believe that anymore. But I also, for that one, had to adjust what I thought an idea was. Like, in the reality, what's an idea? I'm not a very good singer. I was a very good singer. Was I Lady Gaga talent or Taylor Swift talent? No. Did that mean that I never could have made it or made a living as a singer? No. Am I at peace with the fact that I didn't pursue that route? Yeah, I am. I'll never make as much money as my boss was. That was just wrong. That was just flat out wrong. And it took me a few years of growing in my career and growing in my confidence in my career to put that one to bed. And again, part of that was the belief I didn't deserve it. Therefore, I didn't ask for it. I had to get over the hump of thinking, do I deserve the raise or don't I deserve the raise? And that helped me figure out how to ask for what I wanted. I can't run. I'm not athletic. I'm going to tell you that story later. That's my main story tonight. I always do. When I use examples, I always seem to center around running. It's a part of my identity that I had to cultivate. And I think that's why it's important for me to share it with you guys. All right. So limiting beliefs. How do we know they're limiting beliefs? How do we identify those? I'm going to throw this out there because if you Googled anything or talked to any other coach or any other mentor or advisor, they're going to tell you this, right? Journaling. For those of you who don't have journals or don't like journaling, free write, brainstorm, open up the notes fun on your app. It doesn't matter. Type words, write words down. The beauty of writing words down is the connection between your brain and the hand movement if you do it with your actual pen and paper, because it helps you remember it. But what I want you to write down is, what are the thoughts that come up when you're experiencing doubt? The minute you say, I can't do that. Why? Why can't you do that? Why won't you do that? Is there a limiting belief? What's the belief behind that statement? And is that a limiting belief or is that true? So the journaling part is just giving yourself some quiet time to just sit back and go, okay, where are the points today where I said no? And what were the reasons why? Or where were the points today where I really hesitated to lean in or I was very non-committal? And what was the reason why? What was the reason behind that? Because once you start understanding what the reason was behind it, you can then get to, is it true? Is it true? What's my proof? What's my proof that I was bad at math? The proof I was bad at math was that I had a teacher in the 11th grade who I could not understand how he explained certain Algebra 2 math problems. I was in Algebra 2. He was explaining the problems on the board. I didn't get it. I genuinely didn't get it. And so I thought I was stupid because there were other people in my class who did get it. Now, in my defense, I was 17. Until that point, I did not think I was bad at math, by the way. Until that point, I did not think I was bad at math. And this was a former college professor of math and physics or something, but a former college professor from Cal Polytech who retired, and in his retirement was teaching high school math. To me, teaching high school math at a college level, because I genuinely had no idea what was going on. And when my father went in for the parent-teacher conference, because I think it was the first time in high school that I had a C, and my complaint to my parents was, it didn't matter if I failed the quiz or got an A on the quiz. Every quarter when I got a report card, it said C. I got a C. It didn't matter whether I tried really hard or didn't try at all. When my father went in for the parent-teacher conference to find out why, it didn't seem to matter how hard I worked, I was getting this even keel grade. His response was, now keep in mind, this is many years ago. I was at a parochial school, and they did believe this, and this is an older man. So at the time, an older generation, and 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, 40 years ago. And he said to my father, don't worry about it. She doesn't need to understand algebra. She's just going to get married and have kids. She doesn't need it. So my father came home and said, I don't care what grade you get. And that's the only time in my entire lifetime my father ever said he didn't care what grade I got. And I got a C. Despite that little anecdote I just told you where I felt like I was excused, right? I was excused from not being good at math. The story was still, I wasn't good at math. The story wasn't, he's a terrible teacher. The story was, I'm not good at it, and I'm not going to get extra help because according to my math teacher, I don't need it anyway. And according to my father, he wasn't going to fight that battle, and he was bad. So, all right, that was a sidetrack story. But anyway, journaling. What's the why behind it? Where's the proof? Instead of journaling, if you don't want to take a pen to paper, self-reflection, meditation, just take a quiet moment to think through. I'm hesitating right now. I'm resisting doing this thing right now. Why? What's really holding me back here? What's the fear? What's the story behind the fear that's having me say, I'm not going to apply for that job. I'm not going to ask for that promotion. What's happening? Why am I making the choice to walk away? Why am I making the choice to pursue route A instead of route B when I know I really want route B? It's digging deeper. So whether you journal it or you meditate on it or you just take a moment to breathe and really think it through, it's all about getting to what's behind the hesitation. Now, if you're not catching yourself and having those deeper conversations with yourself, then really the first step is just notice the hesitation. When are you triggered with a strong emotion of anxiety or frustration or fear? Anytime you're in a situation and that gets triggered in you, right? There's a decision point to be made. There's a thing that has to happen next. And suddenly you are filled with, uh-oh, or oh my gosh. Take a note of that. What's this moment of anxiety that I'm feeling? Why did this come up? What's triggering this feeling? When you can identify that trigger, then you can answer the next question of, okay, so I'm feeling this anxiety because they just asked me to go speak at a conference in front of 500 people. And I just went, oh, I can't do that. Like my head immediately went, you can't do that. You do not go on stage and do that. That's what created the anxiety. All right, why do I think I can't do this? Is it because I've never done it before? Is it because I did it last time and I failed miserably and everybody booed me off stage? Right? What's the reason behind that hesitation? So catch it. If you don't catch the full thought, start with just identifying when you feel those moments of anxiety. When you can recognize the trigger of what's triggering that feeling of anxiety, what's triggering that feeling of fear or frustration or feeling stuck, start there. Once you see a pattern behind that, once you can figure out what that situation is that spiked that emotion, then you can start digging deeper. So my question to you, and I'd love for you to share it in the chat, but you don't have to because I know this can feel a little bit sensitive, but is what are the stories you're telling yourself? As I'm talking through these, what are your limiting beliefs? What is holding you back from the next thing? When we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about this all the time in different flavors, right? What's the thought that's holding you back? You think you need another certification. You think you need to go take that training class. You think you need 2 more years experience. You think that unless it's perfect, you can't show it to your boss. You think unless you have all the answers, you shouldn't say anything at all. Right? What's the thought behind the thought that's holding you back? What are the stories you tell yourself? I told myself for the longest time that I was not an athlete, that I was not athletic. All through high school and even college, physical exercise was something that I would do occasionally because I felt like I needed to, I was supposed to, but it wasn't because I thought I was an athlete at all. It wasn't because I thought I was athletic at all. And I was honest, perfectionism is that one, it doesn't let go, right? That says, and it holds us back. It's the limiting belief that if what we put out to the world, what we say, what we do, the work that we do, if it isn't exactly right, then it's a complete failure. There's no gray area with perfectionism. It's either perfect or it's awful. And when you live in that dichotomy, you're paralyzed, right? You're stuck. You procrastinate. You don't get anything done because it's never perfect. And it's painful then when you do put it out there because you're holding all this judgment for yourself. You're waiting for everybody to slap you down with judgment, which genuinely they honestly don't usually do. All right, so something else you can do to identify a limiting belief, check your stories with your friends. Often limiting beliefs are so ingrained in us that we think it's true. And when you talk it out loud with a mentor, a friend, a coach, whoever, but talk it out loud and see the reaction you get. I have a BFF who I adore, whose judgment I value, whose opinions I valued, who has a wide array of experience in her life, in her career, of things she's done and accomplished that gives her a really interesting and a very open-minded perspective. And that's one of the things I really value about her. But I can't tell you the number of times in the past few years I've heard her talk about looking at this job or applying for that job, and always wrapping it up with, but I'm not qualified for that. But I don't really have enough experience for that. But they wouldn't even consider me. Why would they? Because she looks at the fact that she's had a varied career. And by varied, I mean she's done a bunch of different things successfully. She always leaves that part out. She's done a bunch of different things successfully. But she didn't spend 30 years like I did in a marketing career. What she did spend was a few years in one career around business management and operations, and then a few years in real estate, and then a few years in accounting and bookkeeping. And then, like, she's done multiple things. So she has this very broad skill set that any business would be fortunate to have. And yet, when she looks at potential opportunities, her limiting belief is, I'm not qualified for that. And she justifies it with, because I don't have a 20-year career in that field. So even though she herself has a varied experiences, she doesn't look at her calculator like she needs one. And she's looking around going, well, I guess I got to figure out how to do this. And she's figuring it out. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter how many years experience you have. We're learning. We're always learning. That's how we get better. That's how we improve. That's how we do new things. So talk to your friends, because I tell my friend all the time, that's a limiting belief. You are qualified for many things. What's interesting is when your friends don't see you the way you see you. I had one of my friends come back to me. I used to think one of the limiting beliefs, one of the things I used to believe about myself was hyperactive, super excitable, very reactive. And then I got feedback from multiple people that one of the things that they appreciated about me was that I was calm and grounded, which is not reactive, which is not hyperactive. So somewhere I had a story that I showed up as a very obnoxious, hyperactive individual. And yet the feedback I ended up getting later from people was, we really appreciate the fact that you bring this calm, grounded energy to our conversations. Oh, maybe I could own that identity instead. I like that one better. Talk to your friends. How do they see you? Talk to your boss. How does your boss see you? Coworkers. Check your limiting beliefs against other people and see what's real. The other thing you can do is track where you self-sabotage, because we all do a little bit of self-sabotage sometimes. Procrastination, avoidance, giving up too soon, those are all forms of self-sabotage. So the question to ask yourself when you find yourself in a circling pattern, you're not doing the thing, you keep thinking about it, you keep ruminating in your head about it, or you're avoiding it, you choose a different path, you do something else, or you try it, but you started a new exercise program, you did it for 2 weeks, and then you gave up. What's the story you're telling yourself that's stopping you from continuing, that's stopping you from moving forward? Identify how and when you self-sabotage, and then you can have a conversation in that moment, and then you can reveal to yourself, what's behind this limiting belief? What am I self-soothing here? My form of self-sabotage in almost any situation, though, is stress eating. My reaction to stress is go find the saltiest, richest, fattiest food you can find and shove it in your mouth. And it solves all my problems for the 3 minutes I'm stuffing my face. I do it when I'm stressed about a conversation I don't want to have. I do it when I'm getting ready for a new exercise and new health and routine program because it's my last chance. I know this is what I do. So I also know that when I am craving fried chicken and mashed potatoes, right? When I am craving a really cheesy, gooey, meaty burrito, when I am craving potato chips and onion dip, oh, it's my downfall, onion dip and potato chips. When I'm craving those things, there's something else going on. What is it? So lots of ways that you can sit back and kind of take note of what's happening with me. Why am I putting roadblocks in my own way? Because believe me, after a bag of chips and onion dip, I don't feel like going for a run. And I don't even feel like having that difficult conversation. I feel like I need a nap and probably a cleanse. Right? So when you can identify what the belief is, you can challenge it. Where did this belief about myself come from? Is there evidence that actually supports this belief? What would I say to a friend who thought this way? Right? You can start asking the questions that you would ask your BFF about these limiting beliefs. Because once you start challenging those beliefs, that's when you start realizing this isn't really real. This isn't real. This is a pattern. This is something I was told. It doesn't mean it's true. And honestly, even if it's happened in the past, doesn't mean it has to be reality again. Different day of the week, different person, different growth pattern. We do and can change and do things differently. So get down to where did this come from so that you can challenge it. When you're in a place where you can challenge it, you can change the story. I used to believe I was not athletic and I was not a runner. I did not start running until I was in my 30s because I believed I was not athletic, I was not a runner. I believed I could not be a runner because I am large-chested. And large-chested girls shouldn't run because what happens? They sag. That was the story. That was the story. It didn't matter that there are 10 million workout bras and running bras out there that I could try, that I have tried, by the way, and sorted out to figure out what's going to help me run. The other limiting belief was I'm going to ruin my knees. There are plenty of runners who do have weak knees or bad knees, and there are plenty of runners who are running marathons well into their 70s and 80s. So it's not a guarantee, but it is a limiting belief. So the limiting belief was I couldn't, and I had to replace it with a new belief, a new mantra. Now here's the thing. You do want to replace it with a new belief. So it's not enough for me, but it's not enough. You can't just do the new belief. So it wasn't enough for me to say, okay, no more of this nonsense that you're not athletic or that you can't be a runner, Natalie. Now you're going to be a runner. Now you're going to practice this new identity that says, I'm a runner. I'm athletic. I can do athletic things. Telling myself that story helps catch me in that moment of self-doubt. It helps me reframe my mind and give me a new identity to live up to. Oh, well then what's a decision a runner would make in this instance? What's a decision an athlete would make when the menu is in front of her and she really wants the potato chips and onion dip, but she has a run tomorrow? What's the decision that athlete is going to make, right? The empowering belief is a big part of it and you need it, but it's not enough because you need a plan. If you're going to change the limiting beliefs and do something different, you need a plan. Now, often we already know what the plan should be. This is, again, we procrastinate, we hold ourselves back. Well, before I make a plan, I got to know all the details. I got to know what to eat. I got to look at my macros. I got to study the like, what's the actual training program going to look like? No. You know all that. I guarantee you know all that. And if you don't know all of it, in 10 minutes on Dr. Google, you can figure it out. Those are procrastination and self-sabotage techniques. You need a plan so that you can take action. We know what to do. We don't do it out of fear, out of overwhelm, out of doubt. And that is why you have the mantra. Because when the voice in your head creeps in and says, but you're not really an athlete, but you're not really a runner, but you don't really deserve the promotion, but you're never really going to make that much money, that's what your mantra is for. Shut up, voice. I'm a runner. Shut up, gremlin. I'm an athlete and I'm going to make athlete choices, and let me show you how. And the plan is what makes it easy to do the how. Once you put a plan on paper, and this is where I want you to take I'm looking for it, a physical piece of paper and a physical pen and write the plan down, because that's how we make the connection between the brain and the story we're telling ourselves up here. And when we physically write it out, we are solidifying that pattern in our head. And you take the plan and you break it down into phases. So here's what I've started working on this week. And this is one of the reasons why I'm using running, because this is top of mind. It just got wicked dark in my room, didn't it? Welcome to winter, friends. It is coming in. All right, excuse the lighting. We're at the important part, though. This is the plan. Breaking down my plan into phases. So here's what happened. Due to multiple catastrophic and sometimes ridiculous, but life-changing events this year, 2024 has not been my favorite year. But due to multiple events, I have not been a runner this year. I just haven't. It's been so sporadic, and I haven't run in a couple of months. My last really good runs was back in February. I had this amazing week of amazing running. I was running all over Paris, and then boom, my son was in a car accident, and that started this series of events that have been my excuse. Truth. There's been some reality to them, and there's been a little bit of excuse going on for why I haven't been running consistently, and almost not at all. I need to get back into running. I want this. I want my identity as a runner back. Now I have an added challenge that my son, who was in the car accident, is now working on his physical strength, and he wants to get back into running, and he wants to do a Spartan race next year. When he was in high school, and this was 7 and 8 years ago, me, him, his brother, his sister, and all their friends used to do a series of Spartan races. That was our jam. And then we stopped doing the Spartan races. People moved away to college. We were in different places. We stopped doing the Spartan races. And then this year I just stopped running. So now we have a goal. But if you're not familiar with a Spartan race, it's an obstacle course race. They go anywhere from 3 miles to 13 miles, depending on the one you sign up for. And there's anywhere between 20 and 30 obstacles. It's an obstacle course race. Through mud, through fields, mountains. Sometimes they do them in stadiums. Venue can be different, but they're hard and they're physically challenging. So now my son and I have a goal. We want to do a Spartan race. The next one in our area is next year. There might be a sooner one near my parents. We're going to see. But I am nowhere near in shape to run a Spartan race. Not even close. So now I have to think, if my goal for next year is to be able to run the smaller race, a 3 to 5 mile race with 20 obstacles, what do I have to do? Well, guess what? By next August, and this is what I started writing down on paper. So this is, I'm sharing with you the start of my plan. By next August, I have to be able to run 5 miles, and I have to be able to at least have a reasonable attempt to manage the 2 hardest obstacles, which for me are the monkey bars, right? Swinging, like when we were a kid, swinging from bar to bar. Those are hard for me. And what they call the Z wall, which is where you walk, you climb laterally across a wall, and all you're holding onto with your hands and your feet are these little wooden blocks that are nailed into the wall that are all of like 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. I hate the Z wall. I've always hated the Z wall, and I don't love the monkey bars. But if I'm going to have a successful Spartan race, I have to at least be able to give those a good old college try. And I have to be able to run 5 miles, because the longest Spartan race is it's a 3 to 5 mile race, and they typically aim for the 5. But that's where I have to get to. To get to that, I also have to be able to run 4 miles. I have to be able to climb over 8-foot walls. 5-foot, 6-foot, and 8-foot walls. And I think there are 10-foot walls, but you get help on those. I have to be able to do 20 burpees. Because in order, if you fail at an obstacle at a Spartan race, they make you do burpees instead of finishing the obstacle. So I have to be able to do 20 burpees, because it's 20 burpees for every obstacle I fail. But to get there, I have to be able to run 3 miles, typical 5K. I have to at least be able to do 10 burpees. So what I started to do was break down my goal. My goal is to run 5 miles, to have enough physical strength to at least attempt the monkey bars and attempt the Z-wall. That's my phase 3 goals. Those are the final goals for me to achieve. Before that is phase 2. Phase 2, I'm going to run 4 miles. I'm going to be able to climb at least the 6 and 8 foot walls and do 20 burpees. Before I even get there, phase 1. Phase 1, run 3 miles, do 10 burpees. Okay, so I'm going to start with phase 1. How do I get there? Phase 1, I need to run 3 miles. I want to be able to do 10 burpees. I want to be able to do it by Thanksgiving. My obstacle race is until August, so I got time. So by the end of November, I'm giving myself really 2 full months to run up to 3 miles and to be able to do 10 burpees. So what does it mean? It means that starting pretty much in October, next week, I need to start running every other day. I need to start building up my running stamina again. And I'm going to start with a mile. Just a mile. Because I'm setting micro goals, right? I'm setting the little micro goals that are achieved. I know I can run a mile. I'm going to hate it because I haven't run in months, but I also know it's doable. I'm going to run a mile, and then I'm going to increase it to 1.5 miles after about a week. And after another week, I'm going to increase it to 2 miles. And I'm just going to do half-mile increments of increases until I get up to 3 miles, and I'm going to try to increase it every week. That should get me to 3 miles by the time I'm towards the end of November and get me comfortable with it. So that's every other day. On non-running days, I need to stretch. Because if there's one thing I've learned being a runner in my 50s, it's very different than being a runner in my 30s and 40s. And if I do not stretch, and if I do not do some strength building for certain muscles that my body pulls on when running, I get injured. Because back in February, after all the great running I did in January and February, I had a wicked case of plantar fasciitis for a couple of months. And I had a case of piriformis, which is where your glute muscle gives you a lot of pain. It's almost like a sciatica pain. Again, if I had done proper stretching and strength building in my legs and my back, I would not have these issues. So on my non-running days, I need to stretch, I need to do push-ups, I need to do strength building exercises. I'm going to start with 5 push-ups. Push-ups are kind of the core of the burpees. That's why they're important. I'm going to start with 5 push-ups. And every 3 or 4 workouts, I'm going to increase it by 2, and then 2 until I get to 10. And once I get to 10, I'm going to replace the 10 push-ups with 5 burpees. And then I'm going to increase by 2 or 3, and by 2 or 3 every couple of workouts until I'm up to 10 burpees on those non-workout days. Now, run starting with a mile, do a few stretches and 5 push-ups. That's a totally doable workout plan. It's not only doable because it's in small increments that I can achieve, but think about it from a time frame standpoint. I should be able to run the mile in 15 minutes. Like, you can walk a mile in 15 minutes. I should be able to run the mile in 15 minutes. That is not a long-ass workout. I can work that into my day. If I'm doing a stretching routine, I have a stretching app. The stretching exercises run about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm doing push-ups. I'm still under 30 minutes for a workout. This is all to build up not just my physical strength, which is what I need to do. It's building up the habit of working out every day. A 15-minute run every day, doable. And as I get better and build my strength and my stamina, I'm going to want to spend more time doing it, and I'm going to work that into my schedule because it's become a priority and it's become a habit in my life. The plan is where we defeat the limiting beliefs. But if you do not start with identifying what the story is, what's the limiting belief, and then giving yourself the mantra to get your mental bit, your brain back on track, your mind back on track with why you're doing the thing. Because I am an athlete, because I am a runner, because I have a goal of a Spartan race a year from now. There's my motivation to say, and here's my plan, and it's a totally doable plan, and that's why I'm going to stick with it. So, dirty girls, getting out of your own way to get what you want and to get what you deserve, because you deserve what you want, and because there's no reason why you can't have what you want or that you don't deserve it. We have to start with understanding the mindset, right? What are the things we believe that we can't do? And start breaking them down. And I want to remind you, you know where limiting beliefs started with? Well, it's not the start of it, but it's the start of it for modern women. Those of us, a lot of us in this group, are old enough to remember when women couldn't do anything. when women in the workforce was a novelty, because women weren't smart enough in business, because women weren't good enough at math or sciences. Women can't code and do computers. There are still those of us who grew up in an era where the modern working woman who had all the opportunities in front of her was a new thing. It was a novelty. It wasn't fully believed. And honestly, there's still so much bias out there. I think it's still not fully believed by men, but that's a different Trading Tuesday. What I want you to remember is limiting beliefs were huge. They used to be this big, and we let them get into our heads. So it's time to get them out of your head, and it's time to break them down, change the story, and then build a plan to get you what you do want. Ladies, thank you for sticking with me tonight on getting out of your own way and getting what you want and deserve. I hope tonight's breakdown was helpful in terms of identifying your limiting beliefs, getting to the story that's behind them, giving yourself a new identity with your new belief, and breaking down a plan. I'm a big fan of plans, and I'm a big fan of breaking them down into digestible chunks and building micro habits. All right. It's a beautiful Tuesday in New England. I hope you are having a beautiful Tuesday wherever you are. As always, a pleasure to be here with you tonight, and I am looking forward to seeing you all next Tuesday. Have a fantastic night. If you have questions, comments, or other ideas, throw them in the chat, and I'd be happy to address them. Have a great week, ladies.